What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here, back with the special episode, man. I told y'all to turn on those post notifications. Make sure to subscribe now if you are a new listener, man. We appreciate you. We appreciate you being here, listening to the podcast, man. I wanted to do kind of like a series of these of, I guess, big opinions of mine coming up for the year. Hot takes, things like that, just so we can see. I want to kind of get the tone of the rest of you guys, how y'all are feeling about this upcoming season. And my first one, we're headed over to Norman, Oklahoma, with the Oklahoma Sooners, in which the question of the day is, should Oklahoma be the 2022 college football playoff champion favorites? And yes, it is for the 2021 season. In case, for some people always get confused, it'd be the 2022 CFP playoffs, though, because it's at next year. But I got a series of reasons why I think this probably should be the case. And now I have no problem, one, with Alabama being ranked first in the preseason poll because they are the defending national champions. That defense is going to be absolutely disgusting, and they deserve their ranking at number one. But I was very happy to see that the AP poll had Oklahoma as a strong second place team, and it's because I really don't feel like Oklahoma is getting the respect that they really deserve this year. And I know, there's some experts out there who agree with me on this. I know in Norman, they are excited as can be for this team, and I can't wait to get down there, man. I got a few games on my list that I'm going to be traveling to Norman for. So hey, if you're a Norman fan, man, make sure to hit comment below and definitely let me know where I can find some great tickets, where the good tailgate spots, man. I'll definitely be in Norman this year for some games, since right now I'm in Kansas. My last time in Kansas, so I got to hit Norman up. But reason number one, and this is the one that I feel very strongly about, and this is one that I feel like everyone tuning in knew I was going to talk about, and it's the offense, man. I really think this offense will be more potent than ever that we've seen in Norman. I mean, listen, I get it. Oklahoma has been an offensive juggernaut, to say the least. I honestly think they could even reach new heights this season. I know it sounds crazy. I get it. But really and truly, this might be the most loaded offense that we have seen in Norman in some time. And I know that's a strong take given the streak of Heisman contenders and winners coming out of this program. The thing for me, though, is that the weakness, or the, I guess, perceived weakness for Oklahoma has always been a consistent running game. Can they run against the best of the best? And that was the one question, because they always had the quarterback play, the wide receiver play. But now, when you look at that running back room with Kennedy Brooks and Eric Gray transferring in from Tennessee, the Sooners have a dynamic and explosive 1-2 punch. I mean, last year they were top 15 in EPA in the passing game, but they ranked, almost outside the top 50 in EPA per run due to Kennedy Brooks opting out of the season. This year, I would expect they probably are going to be top 20, maybe even top 10 in both of those. And when you look at Brooks, man, he's rushed for over 2,000 yards. He's averaging over 7.5 yards per carry for his career, and 18 rushing touchdowns in only 2 seasons at Norman. He missed last season, and I really think he could be one of the big missing pieces in this offense. And another name that I know Oklahoma fans are new to, and that a lot of people could be overlooking when they're analyzing this Oklahoma team, is Eric Gray. Transferred over from Tennessee. He rushed for over 1,300 yards there, had 11 total touchdowns. He had some explosive games for the Vols, even though that program was really struggling when he was there. Decided to transfer out after the whole Jeremy Pruitt scandal, and he picked a great job. And the reason that, me and Brandon, my co-host, we host chat rooms on Halftime app. Make sure to go check out Halftime app and download it, man. You can catch us on there. We had a chat room talking about, how these dynamic running rooms succeed. And the ones that are famous, the Lindell Whites and the Lindell Whites and the Reggie Bushes, the Cadillac Williams and the Ronnie Browns, the I mean, who else do you want to put? The Michael Carters and the Javante Williams last year. The reason they work is because each running back has to bring a unique skill set to the offense. You need the bruiser like a Lindo White and a Ronnie Brown to complement the speed, out in space, playmaking ability of a Cadillac Williams and a Reggie Bush. And what Oklahoma has here is just that. Yes, they're both explosive, but Kennedy Brooks is going to be that more run between the tackles, be your every down back. While I think Lincoln Riley can get real creative with how he uses Eric Gray in this offense. He can put him in the slot, get him out in space, and let him make some plays. And also, when Kennedy Brooks needs a break, he can also be that guy you can depend on, and you can get him out in space in different ways, whether it be a screen pass, whether it be the slot, like I said, or run them both and run them on some jet sweeps and things like that. I think Lincoln Riley's creativity could be why Eric Gray is a breakout player this year. I do think Kennedy Brooks is going to be the main guy. When you see this Oklahoma offense, you're going to see Kennedy Brooks most of the time, but I would be shocked if you're watching one of the bigger games and you're like, man, who is that? Who is that Eric Gray kid? And just know I warned you guys. I really like Eric Gray. He really popped his freshman year at Tennessee for me. And let's knock this obvious one out. Spencer Rattler's back, and guys, I was really hard on him after the Iowa State Texas that part of the schedule last year. He for me really matured throughout the season. So like if you took, if we all went together and watched the film from week 1 to week 12, I think you saw the biggest improvement and the biggest maturation in Spencer Rattler last year. I think personally he probably was one of the hottest quarterbacks in the country by the end of last season. You saw it all culminate in just a beat down over Florida in the bowl game. I think he can probably break out even more this season. He already was graded out as the number 4 quarterback in the country in passing grade, according to Pro Football Focus, and was the best quarterback statistically against the pressure. So even when you can try to get in his face and try to rattle him, he lives up. And it showed how it for me, it shows how poised this kid is to lead the offense. And then when you look even with the pressure, the offensive line should be fine. I think it's Ian McIver is replacing Creed Humphrey in the middle. Creed Humphrey is a big loss regardless, but I think McIver is a great replacement. And also, with this offensive line getting some transfers in from Tennessee as well. It's going to allow Rattler more time to exploit defenses. And with this, we're about to get to him, the wide receivers. With this track team of wide receivers, what they have coming back on the outside. Rattler, if he is allowed time, if you can't get pressure on Rattler, he is going to pick you apart. And I think that's why he is a surefire bet right now to win the Heisman or be a favorite. Any odds that don't have Spencer Rattler 1 or 2 probably shouldn't be using those odds because they have no idea what they're talking about. And, I mentioned the track team of wide receivers. I think outside of Ohio State, you could say there's not a wide receiving unit in the country that can compete with what the Sooners are putting on the field this year. You have Marvin Mims, and listen, I'll even pull some film. So let me pull this up. I'll pull some film just for Marvin Mims because I know a lot of people aren't familiar with Marvin Mims. Just look at this play. Look at the ball control. I mean, not the ball placement, one by Rattler, two, being able to track the ball in the air by Mills, and three, just the body control of this kid. I mean, it's a simple route. He comes across, does the traffic doesn't bother him. The little touching and pushing by the DB doesn't bother him. Look at the body control and how he goes up and makes that play. This kid is legit, guys. I mean, he had the 7th best receiving grade in the country last year, had 9 receiving touchdowns in only 11 games. And that was in his first year in this offense. And, his route running is outstanding. I mean, let me back this clip up just a tad bit so you see that catch. But this route running, where are you going, number 12? Hang on. I don't know what 12 was looking at. He was looking at the wrong key, and he got absolutely shook. And that's one of the best safeties in the country in Osworth over at Iowa State. Well, backed up a little bit too far, but I mean, just what the route running is so smooth, just a little jab step gone, and he's fast enough, and it's just perfect placement by Rattler. And I was so impressed with Marvin Mims, and he's probably going to be one of my favorite players to watch this year, just personally, because I think his route running, his playmaking ability, and just that swagger he has is outstanding. And then on top of that, you got five-star Jaden Hazelwood. You got the Arkansas transfer and Michael Woods II, who I think is another huge X factor for this team. On top of that, you still have Theo Weiss, and you have four-star Mario Williams coming in, who probably could contribute here and there and add a lot of depth to your wide receiving room. And then if you look at the tight end position, Austin Stoner is coming back. I think he was out for the season after week 10 last year, but up until that point had almost a 90 receiving grade by Pro Football Focus. And guys, I love these advanced stats. Over 32% of his targets resulted in a 15-yard or more gain. That is outstanding, and I'm so impressed with what he's doing. Lincoln Riley's creativity, guys, and his play calling, and just him being an offensive genius, what he can do with the weapons I just listed, with this quarterback coming back, and there was a lot of questions. Can he develop his own quarterback? He can, and you're about to see it this year. I'm so excited to see how he utilizes the talent on this team. And I think that's reason one why they should be the CFP favorites right now. And reason two, and this is the more important one, this is the one I know everyone in the comments, everyone watching this is like, man, when are you going to mention it? Alex Grinch has worked some dark magic on this defensive side of the ball. For me covering college football for this is going on third season on this podcast, I don't think people are giving Alex Grinch enough credit for the defensive rebuild in Norman. It's been the biggest turnaround in college football, in my opinion. In 2018, when he got there, they ranked 128th in the country in defensive EPA. It jumps all the way to 28th last season, guys. 28th in the country from 128 in only like 2 seasons. And that's without an off-season camp in 2020 where he could even further implement his system and get his players going. For me, they ranked, I believe, top 20, depending on what stat you looked at. They ranked in the top 30 to top 20 in defense last year in terms of points per allowed, total defense, everything's like that. This could be honestly the first time we've seen Oklahoma have a top 10 defense in a long time. And the biggest question mark is the secondary. We'll get there. If this defense can find their chemistry early and make plays in big games, you're talking about a serious problem in the Big 12 and in the country if this Oklahoma team finally has a defense. And the thing that separates this Oklahoma team for me from, I guess, other Oklahoma teams that we've covered and that we've seen is the defensive line. It's going to be overlooked, and I understand that, but they have the potential this year, guys, to have one of the best D lines in the country. It all starts with Nick Benito at the edge spot. He may be the number one prospect at the edge pass rusher spot for the 2022 NFL draft. Last year, in only 9 games, 9 sacks, 11 and a half tackles for loss, he led the country for edge rushers in pass rush grade and pressure rate, in which he got pressure on 25% of his rushes, and pass rush win rate. He also led the country there. And then if you think, okay, well, that's just one guy, you can double him, you can do this, you can just take him out of we can game plan for him. They also have Jalen Redmond coming back, Perion Winfrey coming in, Isaiah Thomas also is coming back. These are all going to be his partners in crime, and it should allow the Sooners to consistently get to the passer and be stout against the run. All three guys I just mentioned outside, I mentioned, Benito's stats, Redmond, Winfrey, and Isaiah Thomas. All three of those guys had above a 20% pass rush win rate. And Redmond graded out as one of the best run stoppers in the country. And then when you look at Perion Winfrey, he led the country in total pressures for an interior defensive lineman, guys. So you're talking about you have four guys who can generate a pass rush on their own while staying stout in the run game. For me, matchup nightmare all the way through the all the way through the Big 12. No way anyone can touch them on the offensive line, blocking that defensive line. And that really helps them in the college football playoff because the only Clemson has a strong defensive line, and so does Ohio State, so does Alabama. But this is the first year where I think you could say Oklahoma can rival them and wouldn't be dead last by a significant margin in that area. Now, I know the secondary is a big question mark for some people. Trey Norwood, their best defender, is going off to the NFL. And this has been a spot that has received a lot of criticism by the media. I really like what DJ Graham is bringing at that corner spot. I think he's going to be their number one corner and be able to be that shutdown guy that they can rely on. Last year, only allowed a 37 passer rating when he was targeted. I think Pat Fields and Justin Broyles will be huge at the safety spot. They really have to step up, and that's a big thing. And for me, the biggest question about this defense is, can you be consistent? Now, we saw at times last year that defense flashed its potential, but what needs to happen is where you consistently play well week in and week out. And so that's the next big step for this defense. And if they can get into the playoffs, I really think this team can make some noise. And I right now, when you look at a paper roster and you look at our paper, I know it's not played on paper. We gotta play the games. This might be the strongest Oklahoma team we've had in the playoff era. And I really think this team can make a run. And then number 3, too, is the schedule. It's a joke, to be completely honest with you. Um, I don't know if there's going to be a team outside of Iowa State that Oklahoma isn't a 10 or more point favorite over. And they don't play Iowa State till the 20th of November. Non-conference, Tulane, Western Carolina, and Nebraska, they should be significant favorites over all of them. And when you look at their, in-conference games, Kansas, Kansas is they might as well play Tulane a second time over playing Kansas. West Virginia, Texas, Oklahoma State all have major question marks. West Virginia, that whole secondary left. Is that defense even going to be able to hold up in the conference? We don't know yet. Texas with a new coach, quarterbacks, wide receiver, question marks everywhere. Texas has a lot of question marks. I don't think they're ready for this Oklahoma team this year. Oklahoma State, Chuba Hubbard's gone. Tylen Wallace is gone. That D line has a lot of question marks. Can you get a consistent pass rush? Baylor and Texas Tech just don't have the ammo right now, in my opinion, to realistically challenge the Sooners. It sounds crazy, but the biggest threat might just be getting over that hump that is Kansas State. They've pulled out magic 2 consecutive years. But let's be honest, a third is very unlikely, but it is going to be interesting because the Sooners do have to go up to Manhattan, the Little Apple, and try to pull off in a big game in a very tough environment. And Kansas State is going to come in with confidence, knowing that they can win that game. When I look at the conference, though, I think TCU and Iowa State are the biggest games for the Sooners. They should still be the favorite, but these teams are really the teams that I think can give them a run for their money if everything goes right. And TCU did lose Merrick and Ardarius Washington in the secondary. They still returned TJ Carter, Noah Daniels, Travius Hodges Tomlinson. That defensive backfield will still be top notch. And I don't think you could ever sleep on a TCU defense led by Gary Patterson. They always come to play. They're always tough, and they're not going to be a pushover. The real key for me, if TCU is going to challenge Oklahoma, is whether Max Duggan can take that next step. The playmaking and the rushing, like we saw in the Texas game last year, is there. But he ranked outside the top 50 in big-time throw rate and accurate pass rate in the country last year. He's going to have to show he can push the ball down the field. The wide receiving core is there for TCU, but it's going to be, can Max Duggan evolve as a passer? And Iowa State, of course, is the biggest threat because they were the biggest threat last year. They pulled off the upset in Ames, and on top of that, gave them a pretty strong run in the Big 12 championship. And Iowa State returns almost everybody from their 2 deep depth chart from the 2020 season. They rank top 5, just like Oklahoma, in the country in every positional ranking, and top 3 in all but 2. And the schedule for them is favorable as well. So that matchup on November 20th, it has a good chance of being 11-0 versus 11-0, or a 10-1 versus 11-0, something like that. These teams are going to be highly ranked. It's probably going to be a top 10 matchup when they ride into Norman in late November. The front seven has to be ready. That I talked about how much talent they have up there, but Brees Hall, it was a serious problem last year. Over 140 yards and 2 touchdowns in their regular season game. Brock Purdy has to keep the Sooners honest here. Xavier Hutchinson is back as the wide receiver one. I think Oklahoma runs through the Big 12, and that's another reason why I think they're going to be primed and ready because I think that they should be healthy. They should have all the momentum, and I think this team is going to be clicking just at the right time, especially because they get their toughest test late in the season. It's just going to give them even bigger boost if they can pull the game out. They might have to face them twice like they did last year. So beating a good team like Iowa State, who was preseason top 7 twice in the final 2-3 weeks of the season, should give this team that springboard to really make an impact in the college football playoff. And then when you look at reason number 4, and I know this will rub people the wrong way, so I got some more episodes coming out later this week about these top contenders. And that's the questions surrounding the top contenders are real. And, Oklahoma, for me, has less question marks than just about every other team in the country. Clemson lost a bunch in that secondary. They lost De'Aaron Kendrick. They lost Mike Jones at that linebacker hybrid spot. Will the secondary hold up for Clemson? And two, that O line last year really broke down in the playoffs and broke down against the elite competition. So is that O line rebuilt for Dabo Sweeney? And can Clemson kind of rebound from a year where they really got embarrassed on a national stage in the playoffs? So and they got a new quarterback. I know DJ played 2 games. He was 1-1 though. And so I want to see what he can do. But right now, I feel like Oklahoma is a more complete team than Clemson right this second. Georgia, I feel like this team's very strong. They're returning JT Daniels, but we do have some targets in terms of new starters in the secondary. Now they're very good starters with Keely Ringo. They got I'm blanking on his name right now, the kid from West Virginia as well. But for me, that's still a question. And then two, George Pickens' injury makes it very complicated for JT Daniels because is there going to be a lead receiver that emerges that can be as dynamic and explosive as Pickens? They land Eric Gilbert. There were reports that he's having some mental health struggles and had to step away from the team. So man, we wish him the best, but that leaves a big hole there. I don't think Darnell Washington can do everything. I know he's 6'7" and a matchup nightmare, but I also want to see what Kendall Milton is at the running back spot. And they have a lot of new starters on that offensive line as well. So Georgia has some big question marks that have to be answered too. And then Ohio State, brand new quarterback, probably CJ Stroud. And they got questions at the secondary that they've been there all season. Michael Penix threw for 500 on them. Alabama exposed them in the national championship. So can they get some talent in that DB spot that can be, I guess, efficient and consistent on the back end? And I feel for me, Oklahoma's biggest threat right now is Alabama. Their real big question mark is replacing Matt Jones. Can Bryce Young live up to that 5-star hype? All reports out of Alabama are that he looks very, very, very good. And for me, the running back situation is being overlooked too. I mean, Brian Robinson is experienced, he's good, but I don't know, can he replace what Najee Harris really brought to that offense last year? And that's a big question. And then outside of John Mechie, what are the rest of those receivers going to look like? The defense is there, guys. Alabama's defense is probably going to be number one in the country. It's probably the best Nick Saban defense we've had since 2012, just to be honest with you guys. So I'm very interested to see how this Oklahoma offense matches up with Alabama. I would love to see that matchup in the playoffs. But guys, on paper, my whole argument here is that I think people need to start putting a little bit more respect on Oklahoma's name. All those past years of playoff failures don't really mean anything this year. That's all the past. This is a new team. And I think when you look at this Oklahoma team, this is probably the most complete team they've had in a long time. And I really think Lincoln Riley, if there was ever a year for Oklahoma to be the favorite and break through, it's this year, guys. So let's put some more respect on Oklahoma's name. But guys, I appreciate y'all tuning into this special episode, man. Subscribe if you're new, man. We'd love to have you join the Blue Bloods, man. We post daily daily college football content. We got interviews in the off season. We preview everything. So make sure to check us out. If you haven't, make sure to go subscribe to our social medias. If you haven't, you can just look up the Blue Bloods and we should pop up. And guys, over 78% of y'all still aren't subscribed that are watching, so make sure to do that now. Turn on your post notifications too. We'll be back tomorrow with a 2-minute drill and another special episode. So just stay tuned for the topic on that one, man. It'll be dropping at 5:30 tomorrow, and appreciate y'all tuning in, man. But we'll be back tomorrow. But for right now, we are out.